Hello, everyone, and hello, Karolina. I'm Karolina Glady, a
Hello.
coach, and I'm talking today with Karolina Bartoszek-Dourado, also known as in Polish biznesowa skrzydłowa, which in English would be a business wing woman, which is a very fun and cool name, isn't it? And
Thank you.
yes, and we are talking about something that fascinates me, I think, the most. It's creative process. And I'm in love with creativity that is kind of juicy, magical, filled with flow and surprises sometimes, and also leads to beautiful, fruitful results, which are original. And I'm sure that Karolina is the right person to talk about. I will tell you in a moment how I came across her work. But before, a very warm welcome to you, Karolina, and please tell us a little bit about yourself and about your very original and fun business.
Okay, first of all, thank you for the invitation. And yeah, how to describe myself. My name is Karolina, and as you said, I'm a business wing woman. And it means that, like, wingmans that helps her friends, his friends, to hook up with girls in pubs. So I'm business wing woman, which means that I help my clients, their brands, to make people, their clients, to fall in love with their products and services, and then create like relationships, and then make them sell happily ever after.
How wonderful to help the clients to fall in love in their products and services. That's a wonderful way to think about business. It's
Yeah, I
really
think it's not very usual way of thinking about business, I would say. But I remember when I had this idea to use this metaphor of romantic relationship to describe relationship between clients and brands. I used my own experience that sometimes I just fell in love with some brand, and I would give like my less money to, I don't know, participate in some, well, for example, courses or classes, and say, yeah, I love being there. I love the way how the brand makes me feel about myself, about my work and stuff. So yeah, I think it was the appropriate way for me to describe some things. I also wanted to make this easier to understand for people that are not so associated with business and they're, I don't know, starting their own business. Because there is a lot of people talking about how to run your business, but they use words that are not so familiar for, let's say, normal people.
yes.
So I thought if I translate it into something that is familiar for everyone, like we all had relationships in our life, it will be easier to imagine what to do with our businesses.
Yes, that's a brilliant idea, and that's what you are sharing in your newsletter, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, I came across your work in internet via the Latająca Szkoła, just like the
Mhm.
Flying Academy for women, and I signed up for your newsletter, and I really love it. It's so fun, and you are comparing. You have this beautiful way of comparing business to dating, and you are sharing your different adventures, romantic adventures from your past, but then you are comparing it to how we can actually apply it in our business, which is, yes, I totally agree with you that it's not like so serious and scary for some people who are perhaps starting, or it's not dry, it's kind of juicy and effortless and very relatable. I love your
Yeah.
newsletter, really.
The funny thing about my newsletter is that I never really thought about having a newsletter, because I'm used to work one-on-one with clients. So, and newsletter you use basically to reach more people, to build some kind of society around your brand. So then I was participating as a student in flying school created by Agata Dudkowska, and I was thinking, yeah, maybe I should do something to create my own digital products but then to sell them, I would have to have my own society around my, maybe newsletter is not a bad idea. And I had this idea to use my, let's say, dating experience, but in fact, it was sometimes no dating experience because I have a lot of funny stories from my like love life, but it's normally a story of funny failures, let's say. And I thought that from them I could draw, I can share them with my society, and from them I can draw the conclusions for small businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And well, people loved it. People loved it, and they started to sharing them. And I reached some clients through my newsletter. And the funny thing is that I'm writing it since 9 months, and I started when I was like 6 months after my daughter was born. And for a long time, for a few months, it was the only way of promoting my business.
Okay.
So writing one episode of newsletter each week was the only way to reach my potential clients, to build my position as an expert in business. And you may think that it's nothing, that if you don't have time, it's like it doesn't make sense to make anything. But I think that like using the time I had, it was it was fun because I had like small baby, and often I was writing my newsletter on the phone, like laying in bed with her because she was sleeping, she was having a nap. And like I was using every 3 minutes to write it, and that way I was building like with small steps, but I was building. I was doing something. I was making like first steps in building my brand, and that's what I would recommend. Like for everyone who think that they don't have time to promote their business, like doing anything is better than doing nothing. So sometimes even one thing is will make a huge experience, a huge difference.
Yeah. It's so interesting, really, because I find that many people, including myself sometimes, are very kind of busy doing a lot of things related to promoting their business, but it's like a bit scattered and doesn't bring results. And from your story, it looks like you really channeled your creativity into this newsletter. You focused only on this. You didn't kind of diffuse your energy in many different directions, but this newsletter only, you gave it your heart in a way, and it brought you results. It brought you clients, correct?
Yeah. Yes. And I think it's very important to find a way not to frustrate yourself with, for example, lack of time. Because I also thought at the beginning, okay, so I have to have newsletter, I have to have Instagram account, I have to do everything. Like I have to participate in Facebook groups about creating business. I have to show up in every place possible, and it was impossible. And I had to options. Or I will frustrate myself so much that I will leave everything and I will go back to my normal job in the ad agency, and I will leave my dreams behind, and I will leave my baby with a nanny or something, or someone else. Or I will focus on one thing, and I will do best I can to make it something significant for people. And then if it will be in some way stable, I will think about like other ways to reach the potential clients. But in fact, I I have also Instagram account that I try to write something like twice a week. But in fact, I don't have that much time to reach potential clients, and because I don't have time to serve them, because I already have like, if I have like 4 hours during the day to work at night, and my time is so limited, I don't have a necessity to like fill it up so much. and newsletter is enough. And my clients that I had in the past, that they're recommending my services to other people.
Yes, wow, it is really super helpful and very interesting to not to frustrate yourself with wanting to do everything, but to focus on one thing that you can do very well, that you enjoy doing, and just stick with it. So important. Thank you for this point. Yeah.
In fact, you don't have to do it very well at the beginning, because I had no idea about writing newsletter. I'm still not an expert in writing newsletter, but like focusing on one option, on one channel, and testing various stuff, and like trying for some time and not giving up. This is crucial in that situation.
Yeah. Thank you for this. Okay, so I'm very eager now to ask you how you are creating. And I want to just give our listeners a little bit of context because you recently delivered a service to a friend of mine. Hello, good friend of mine, if you are listening and watching. And you gave a name to her creative project. And I saw the presentation that you sent her, and I was really fascinated because, you know, it had structure, it had some analytical thinking, and it also had this juice, this joy. You were mentioning, this made me laugh, this made me feel like this. So I could sense just from seeing the presentation that your creative process must be really kind of joyful with a lot of flow, and at the same time somehow structured also in perhaps a simple way. So I want to know all about it, how you go about creating.
So let's focus on naming. Okay. Because it was naming, so maybe I would explain my process, because it differs in different services. It differs, but I think especially this process of naming that I created, it's kind of funny. So we talked about flying school, and I was a student of it, and now this year I am one of the teachers there, and I had to give a lecture about naming. How I create names, because I was creating names for a long time, like as a freelancer outside of my normal job in agency. And I wanted to find out the way to explain it to the students of flying school in a funny way. So I thought, okay, so I have to name this process in a way that they would that it would be easier to remember and easier to use in practice. So I decided to call it A.M.O.R.
Ah, nice. A.M.O.R.
Because it had to be connected in some kind of romantic relationship. And so each letter of A.M.O.R. Was associated to another phase of the process. So first we have A, which is for analyze. Then we have M, which in English could be mixing. And then we have O, that in Polish is ocena, so it's assessment. And then we have R, which is revelation. So the first thing you have to do thinking about name is analyze. You have to analyze what you want to do as your brand. You have to analyze who is your target group, which feelings you want to like wake up in them. You have to analyze also the market, the people and brands that are doing the same thing as you do. Yeah, there's so the base is a lot of analyzing. So this is the first part that you saw in the presentation that I in this case it was culinary blogs about cooking. So I did some research, and I found some names that I liked, and I draw conclusions from this research. So okay, so there is some group that is in names they use one ingredient and something like I don't know, oil, olive oil and love or something. There is other group that use other kind of kitchen vocabulary that was all other group that I think used some kind of brand hero. And then I have some things in mind, what can be ways of approaching, what can be the ways of approaching this specific topic.
Mm-hmm.
But I can do, I can go like one of those ways, or I can find my totally different way to make
Mm-hmm.
myself more visible, let's say, to make
Mm-hmm.
myself different as a brand. So this is about market. Then you have to think about your target group. No, the first I would the first think about your brand. How like what is this you are offering? Is this it should be perceived as inspirational, funny, helpful, serious, helping?
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to define really
Yeah.
how you imagine yourself in future as a brand, and then you have to think about a target group. Are they old or young? Are they having sense of humor, or are they want to be? Do they want to be treated seriously?
Mm-hmm.
Because it all influences the way you the name you will choose in the end.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so it's a lot of work at the beginning to find out what do you really want.
Mm-hmm.
So this is A from A.M.O.R.
Yes. So this is quite analytical, isn't it? You
Yes.
analyze your brand, your future brand, your market. You're doing some research in
Yes,
yourself and in the market. This is the analytical part.
it seems to be quite boring. Like normally people, when they think about analytical stuff, they think it's boring, but I think it's quite important.
Mm-hmm.
And a thing that's really helpful to make it interesting is curiosity. So you have to be curious to find out how other people are approaching this subject. What do people like? Um, so this is the thing I would recommend at this phase, is just to be curious about the topic.
Yeah, I can see how it can be very exciting even and interesting. It
Yeah, I
requires
like.
some discipline, but can be really, really interesting.
Yeah, and let's for me, googling is like the best thing. You can google everything,
Yeah.
so I like googling. It's a lot of googling in this space. So it's for me it's fun.
Mhm.
And then the second phase, it's making, I would call it in English, mixing. So this is the most creative part of the process, because you have to create the names, the potential names for your brand. So I'm always starting with writing down all the association I have with the subject,
Mhm.
all the words that are coming through my mind, all the I also always send to my clients some kind of questions that they answer. For me, it helps me to better understand their brand and the way they are thinking about it, and also uh, who are they, like their personality, because it has to have something in common with their personality at the end.
Yeah.
So I write down all the association I have in my head,
Mhm.
and I also write down some keywords from the things they wrote.
Mhm.
I have this base of words,
Yeah.
and um, I can make it bigger by, for example, in this case, because it was about cuisine, about cooking, I could write a lot of words associated with senses used
Mhm.
in kitchen, like smelling stuff, like tasting stuff.
Mhm.
And so I am creating some kind of cloud of meanings
Mhm.
that there
Yeah.
are another base for the future name. And then I just start to mix them.
Uh-huh.
Like I can use to it some the conclusions I draw in the first phase, so the ways that other people are approaching the topic. But I also can do some brainstorming and just like let it flow. And try to mix, like using the flow to mix it in a way that that I'm not judging at the moment. So I just try different options. I'm testing, and I'm not thinking about the end result.
Yeah.
I'm just making it as fun as possible, just by like taking 2 pieces or 3 pieces and joining them together to see if it works out or not. And yeah, it's it's funny for me. It's a really joyful process. It's like the from the 4 phases, I think this is the most creative one, and one of the 2 that give me more joy
Joy,
during the
yeah. It really looks that it's very kind of playful, free-flowing stage of the job. And I
but
think
this is
you,
the beginning.
yeah, okay. And you mentioned that you
Because
don't
then you
judge.
come to the yeah, it's very important not to judge yourself or the result of your work during this phase, because there will be time for it. But I think that it can be blocking if you are like inventing some names and then, oh no, this is not good, so I'm awful. I cannot do my job well. Oh, I won't do it anymore. It blocks you. So you have to just turn off the assessment at this phase and just try as many things that you can at the moment.
Yeah, super important. And can I ask you, are you sometimes surprised by the words or the phrases that come to you in this process?
Yes. Yes, this is funny, because the truth is that sometimes I already had cases like this in past, that somebody the client came and they asked me for create the name, and I had the name like 3 minutes after.
Wow.
I thought, oh, it would be cool. Oh, okay, this is the name. And of course, I then I do this creative project, the whole creative process, because normally I give at least three names for them to choose. But it happens a lot that the first name I came like in few minutes, it was the name they chose in the end. So yeah,
Interesting.
sometimes it's surprising and scary, this is awful also from the business point of view, because sometimes I for example in the flying school, I sometimes gave up some names, like, okay, so maybe it should be named like this or like that in few minutes. And then people think that, okay, so it's not difficult, so it shouldn't be expensive, for example.
Okay.
Yeah? Because it's only 1 word or 2 words, so it's not she's not tired by creating, so
Just
let's
taking
not
it
pay her like
down.
that much. Yeah, it's like that easy for her, so it should be cheap, but it's in fact like the most of cases it's work that takes hours. So it's not that easy, but yeah, but the most surprising moments are that the name just comes like that easily.
Yes,
Sometimes
wonderful.
because I like playing with words, like normally it's normal for copywriter. So I'm sometimes also I find joy in the effect, and I'm thinking about some names that I created that are quite funny. And this that I didn't, for example, I didn't expect name in this area of business to be funny, for example, and it's also surprising.
Is it possible to give a couple of examples, or this is confidential?
The couple of examples that I did for Agnieszka.
Or for any kind of brand that maybe surprised you that they were funny.
Funny. Oh, okay. So there, for example, because I'm trying to find some some brands in English.
Yes.
So there was that were doing online course about Etsy, about selling
About
on
what?
Etsy,
Sorry?
and they wanted to Etsy. This is an online platform to sell handmade stuff.
Yes, Etsy. Yes, okay, I know it.
So they created a platform with a lot of materials for people to gain knowledge about how to sell things on Etsy and how to run their business on Etsy. And they asked me to create a name for them. And I thought, okay, so this is handmade, this is business, and it's about making money. So maybe it should be called handmade money. So
Aha.
because it's like money you make with your hands. So in some way it's handmade money. And it was funny because then some people, yeah, but what if people think that it's like you are drawing your the
Okay,
notes
yeah.
and you are I said no, it's like handmade money. It's money you make with your hands. And then
Yeah.
I thought it was quite funny. And the maybe not so funny the funniest example I had I now remembered it. It was like more than 10 years ago. My ex-boyfriend asked me to invent a name for his company, and they were doing they were having screens in the city that was and they were like the screens with advertisement, this
Ah,
LED screens.
okay.
So so the keywords were like advertising, screen, and LED.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I was watching a lot of Friends, the series
The
Friends.
series, yeah.
I was like soaking like a sponge all the American slang,
Mm.
and I thought it would be awesome to call the company Get LED.
Get led. Okay.
And I thought, okay, it cannot be possible that he would like let it happen. But I also knew that he's not very fluent in English.
Yeah.
So I proposed, yeah, so maybe you should call it LED because it rhymes. I said, yeah, cool, I love it.
Yeah.
So it's still in my hometown. There is one screen close to my parents' house that is with this Get LED brand on it, and I find it hilarious.
Yes, in a way you tricked your ex-boyfriend to giving this name.
I tried my best. I still think it's a nice name.
Funny, very funny. Yes. Okay, Karolina, I think that I'm going to turn off my camera because there is a little bit of disturbance with the sound. It might be due to my internet. And I want for the
Okay.
people who are listening to have good quality. Feel free to have
Okay.
your camera on or off. I'm going to turn mine off now.
Can I turn it off also?
It's okay, you can, of course.
Okay. Okay. Because it would be only with my face. It's not like. So I will stop the video now, and we will make a podcast of it. Okay.
Yes, yes. So I'm sure it will improve the sound quality. It always.
Yeah. Yeah. There is a difference already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so we had the first two phases. One was the analyze, then the second one, the creative one, mixing. And shall we move on to the next one now?
Yeah, the one thing I want to add to the mixing phase is that you have to create as many options as it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
But bear in mind that there will be a moment that you will be blocked in some way, and then you think that when you will think that there is nothing else to create, that you had already all the options in the universe,
Mm-hmm.
and this is the time to make a small pause, for example, to, I don't know, drink something, take a shower, go for a walk, or I don't know, call a friend. all I don't know, even go for a few minutes for Facebook or for Pinterest or anywhere, just to like give attention to another stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to take your time, and then other ideas will come. I will sometimes it's even like few days,
Mm-hmm.
and better ideas will come. So you have to, this is a process when you have to give time
Mm-hmm.
to it to be for the results to be best possible.
Makes
So
sense.
don't give up. Don't give up.
Yes.
And you have to make like a huge amount of options, because the third phase is which is ocena in Polish, and in English it would be assessment or evaluation. And this is the most difficult, I think, in the whole process, because then you have, imagine you have a list of options that you like, and then you have to find out if they are really working. So the first thing you have to do is to check out if they are still available. So because you want your brand to be unique, yeah.
Yes.
So you have to Google it if someone had the same idea earlier than you had, because then it doesn't make sense to have the same brand, and it's also against the law. So you have to Google it. You have to find out if it would be possible to buy a domain with the name, and yeah, and it normally it's very hurtful phase, because then you realize that okay, you had wonderful ideas, but someone had it already.
Ah, yes.
So a lot of names like die at this phase.
It
And then
must be a bit sad sometimes.
yeah, it's like heartbreaking.
Yes.
Oh wow, it's a wonderful name, and you are so excited.
Mhm.
But then, oh no, there are like 5 pages already of the same. Because the website is not the only thing you should check out. There is also an Instagram account or Facebook account or YouTube, whatever you want to add to your brand. You have to check it out already.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes to like book the name, even if nothing will happen on the Instagram for next few months. You want to have it for yourself, yeah.
Okay, yes, good point.
You have to check it out, and then you have to find a way to see if the name is understandable for the people from your target group. It would be nice to have this some kind of social confirmation that it's okay, that for example it doesn't bring any negative association for people from your target group, or is it easy to pronunciate for them, because sometimes we invent names that are quite creative, original, but then when people have to repeat it, for example, it brings some kind of problems. So you have to check it out. I have this exercise that I like to do at this phase. So I imagine that I'm going to tax office, for example, and they ask me to give the name of my company, and I tell it the lady that is there, and she's like 65. And I'm imagining if it would be easy for her to repeat the name or to write it down. Because if it's not easy to write down or repeat, then people will have problems with finding you on the internet and telling other people about you also.
Yeah.
And I remember I had this, because I wasn't always a business wing woman. At first, my company, and still formally, its name is A.M.O.R, Creative Services, because in 2012 I thought that A.M.O.R is a great name, because this is the reaction, the kind of reaction I would like to receive from my clients, that they see, for example, naming or texts that I'm writing for them, and the first reaction is like, wow, oh my, it's like amazing. But then every time I went to some office, and every time I had to give the name of my company for the people also, like beside my target group, like in all the, I don't know, for the accountants, for the lady in tax office and stuff, they had problems with writing it, and I had to like pronunciate it like few times or give them written down already the process. So I was like, I had like one girl said, oh, so it's oh my, it's in English, because I thought that's oh my. So in Polish, like oh we.
Yeah.
I was like, what? No, and yeah, so it was kind of disappointing, I would say. And yeah, so it happens also for the people that are doing it for a living. Yeah. So you think that the name is amazing, and real life comes and destroys your dreams. But yeah, so I think that that now my name is better, and it's more obvious for people.
Yeah.
The message is more obvious about what
Yes. Business wing woman.
yeah.
Yes, and it's very important, I think, what you mentioned, that the name, it's not enough when it sounds amazing in our own head, that we need to also think of other people. Yeah.
You have to think that it will be used, and you want it to be used as frequently as possible, and it won't be like that if you don't make it easy for people to say or to write down.
Yes.
There is also another exercise that I do, that because this is no problem with in English, but in Polish we have a lot of cases, like noun cases. So you have to make it easy to declinate, like to appear in different phrases. So this is the exercise of
things to think about on this stage.
So yeah, you have to think about. It's not the first thing that comes to your mind if you think about creating, but yeah, you have to make it correct. Like so, the thing that I like to do, I wrote down some kind of phrases, few phrases that people can say about some brand. For example, I don't know. Have you seen certain brand in newspaper? Or did you hear about the new product of some brand? And then you put the name in Polish, and you or it doesn't have to be in Polish, but you have to hear how it will work in different contexts, in different phrases that people will use.
Yeah, that looks like a very simple and good way to put them in as many sentences that people would normally use as possible.
Yeah.
Check if it sounds good. Yes. Great. Anything else to add for this stage, the assessment process?
I think the funny thing that I discovered recently, not recently, but last year, it's also if you use a word that is in some way abstract or from different language, it's always good to put it into Google, but Google Images. Because sometimes the word that doesn't mean anything in our own language can mean something in other language. Like I don't know, like the light bulbs osram.
Yes.
Which in Polish isn't very fortunate, I would say.
Yes, so true.
So it's good to check it out also with Google Images. There are like many things you can do to check out if the name is good.
Mm-hmm.
And it will all be in my ebook probably in April.
Oh,
So,
wonderful. It will be an ebook about your creative process, about the
yeah,
A.M.O.R.
it will be an ebook about this certain process of creating a name. So
Mm-hmm.
using this A.M.O.R
Yes.
process. So yeah, this
Perfect.
is.
It will be so useful for people. Wonderful.
I hope so. I hope so because I see that many people are struggling with inventing
Mm.
name for their brand. So I wanted to make it like easier for them. So
Yeah.
this is like basic of assessment is this.
Mm-hmm.
Those steps that I mentioned, and the last part is when you already chose the name you want to use. The last phase is revelation,
Ah.
like revelation. So yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
so this is it. This is the moment when you show your new brand to the world and you
Mm-hmm.
announce the birth of it in a way.
Mm-hmm. So this stage is already when the name is chosen and you
Yes.
start communicating it, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Do you have any favorite part of this process?
I think my favorite part is are the compliments from the clients.
Yes.
In the end, when they're like, "Wow, this is amazing," or they have struggles to choose which which name will be best because they like 2 or 3 options from
Mm-hmm.
what I give them. So this is my favorite way basically because the process creative process, okay, for me is quite joyful, but it also, if I know that I'm creating for another person and this is important for them, it's kind of stressful also
Mm-hmm.
because you want every time to be better than the last time. So
Mm-hmm.
so it's very challenging
Mm-hmm.
creatively. So the moment when client sees the options and likes them,
Mm-hmm.
it's my favorite part because if he or she likes them, it takes off the whole pressure of my chest, and it's relieving.
Yes,
Uh,
I can imagine. Mm-hmm.
I also very like the moment of creating, of mixing and experimenting and testing various options and playing with words because I love playing with words.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a pleasure for me. Like
Mm-hmm.
imagining what else can I do with certain word.
Yes. Ah, sounds really good. And really, from your creative process, I'm getting the impression that um, you are providing something that is very personalized to the person because you are really listening deeply. You are doing the questionnaire, you are talking not only about the business but also about the person, what feelings she wants to evoke. So it's so personalized. So you are putting so much thought and your own creativity in it. Sounds really amazing.
Thank you. I think
Mhm.
the personal part is because I studied psychology. I'm a psychologist, specialized in advertisement and consumer behavior, but still a psychologist. So I am really interested in people, in their personalities, and the thing with personal brands, like because normally now I work for the small brands, and it's very associated with the owner of the brand.
Mhm.
Each brand has to um, like show the person that is standing behind it. So I like to know the person better before the creative process because then I can invent the name that would be more associated with them, and it's really important for me that they love the name and that they
Mhm.
feel good with the name, that they feel good like presenting themselves with the name. They have to feel really happy about it and proud of it, and it's like second name, yeah. So
Yes, yes.
so for them to feel good, I have to know what makes them feel good.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to know them better, and it's really, really important. It's okay. It takes more time sometimes. It makes the whole process longer, but I think the results are better then.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the fact that you are in a way creating for someone, it adds the other dimension to your process that makes it more challenging, I'm sure. Because normally when we create something, even like a book or a painting or a service, it's kind of ours. Of course, we need to think about the receiver because it's for other people, but here you are creating it for someone, for the owner, and for their clients. So it's like
Yeah, so it's like two levels.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So
Mm.
in fact, there are three levels because I also want to feel good about it. So
And
it's like,
also for you, yes.
yeah. So there are three levels of people that have to be satisfied with the name.
Mhm, yes, perfect. So, Karina, I want to ask you. You mentioned that sometimes when you feel stuck, when you feel the kind of you reached the limit, there is no other name that could come to your mind. You need to take a break, relax, think of something else, occupy yourself with something different. And this was very helpful. Do you have any other suggestions for our listeners? That can help them when they feel kind of stuck and maybe uninspired.
Okay, so all the things I was start with this. All the things that I mentioned about what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
There are. We have to remember that I worked for years in ad agency,
Mm-hmm.
and it was, for example, when you work at agency, there's no one is interested if you have if you are inspired in this day.
Uh-huh.
You have to deliver the certain stuff at certain hour,
Mm.
and you have to create something.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no option of taking shower normally. Well, it is possible because both agencies I worked in last few years had bathrooms with showers, but still, it's like it's not very common to take shower at your workplace, so it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't an option for me. So in a way, I was trained to always be creative, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe not like fantastically creative, and but to create something like maybe something smaller, not so spectacular,
Mm-hmm.
but still having some effect. So my approach is a bit different because I know that I have to power through the difficulties to have an effect. But what I would recommend to inspire like people that are not associated with the brand, with the advertising industry.
Mm-hmm.
I always what inspires me most, I think it's music and lyrics of music and dancing. So if I want to have an instant effect of relaxing a relaxed mind that would be able to create more, I play some music that I like, or I find some music that I've never heard before,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes some word of the lyrics, or it don't have to be music. Sometimes I just go, for example, go through the feed on Facebook and I see some article, I don't know, or someone's post,
Mm-hmm.
and it evokes something within me uh, that makes me think about the subject from a different perspective, and it's
Mm-hmm.
refreshing. And in that moment I can approach it from a different point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Or sometimes I think what helps is to think about senses,
Mm.
like sometimes it's not that obvious because I don't know, for example, you are I don't know which, you are a florist, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about senses, it's more about smell, yeah, smell of flowers, or sight, or that you see beautiful colors or shapes of flowers.
Mm-hmm.
But you can think about it also that you can touch flowers,
Oh,
or
yeah.
you can pure flowers, I don't know, cutting the flowers, for example. And so you have now like different point of view, and you can think mm, about, for example, words that are associated with it. So cutting, I don't know the word in English for the sound of cutting flowers, but then you have scissors, and then you have like, I don't know, you can think if it gives you pleasure, this sound, or not. If you think about touch, you can imagine like different way of touching yourself. It's okay. I heard it now. It's just really strange. Like you can think about the feeling that touch of the flower evoke in you or in other person, or situations when you touch flower. You can think about situation you have like a contact with certain stuff. So you have sometimes it helps also, I don't know, take a dictionary and open it on a random page and choose a random word and think about association with the subject you are working on. So making it really random often opens like different doors and windows in your head. And the name you create like this, it's not that obvious.
Yes. Wow, those are really helpful suggestions. And what I'm hearing is that you recommend to be quite proactive when it comes to creativity and even inspiration, because sometimes, I think people are sitting there and waiting when they will feel inspired. Now, then they will create. But maybe the moment will come in, I don't know, 2 weeks or 2 months.
Or years.
Right. So it's not that effective. But you are more proactive. And I love what you suggested about music and dancing and touching and the senses, because it personally helps me so much when I feel stuck in my head or when my thinking becomes quite kind of limited. I just need to either go to the nature or move my body, especially to kind of sensual or very joyful music, and I experience it like kind of plugging in to the creative vital force in a way, and then the mind clears and ideas pop very, very often.
Yeah, this is very important, and you have to bear in mind that there is some kind of that the ideas have to incubate sometimes. They have to, sometimes you have them already in mind, but unconsciously, so you have to give them time to like pop out of your head. Like I don't know, like a little chicken from the egg. It's not like it's there, but it needs time to to grow and to be born.
Yeah, so we need to be also patient and kind of have tolerance for the discomfort, because
Yeah,
when the chicken is still inside the egg, it looks like nothing is happening. I'm not
yeah, but it's
producing
happening.
anything, but actually it's a lot is happening inside, and then it will pop at one point.
Yes, about being proactive, I think it's very important, because if you have time, okay, you can wait for years,
Yeah.
but it's kind of lazy approach. And for me, it wouldn't work because it's my work, so I have to do like things very quickly sometimes, or at certain speed to. Let's say from the business point of view, I have to gain money with it. So it has to be like the projects that I take up, it has to have some end. They have to have some end and the final effect. So I have to be proactive and proactively search for solutions and, for example, the names. So I don't have as much time as like normal people do with creating. But still, I recommend the being proactive in the process, even if you have time, because there is a lot of other things you have to figure out in your own business. So I wouldn't recommend to lose much time with, for example, inventing a name for your brand, because it's important, but still it's not the most important thing in your business. The most important thing is to solve people's problem and find clients that will pay for the solution.
Yes,
No
perfect.
one will pay you for the name, yeah. It
Yes.
helps, but
Yes.
you have to give the value for people.
Sure. I think that sometimes people who are quite creative think of deadlines or structure as something kind of rigid and not very inspiring. But I think the opposite can be true also, because I personally learned to love deadlines because they motivate me. And even if I think I don't have anything to write or I don't have anything to say, when I give myself a deadline, I will produce something. It might be good, it might be awesome, it might be so-so, but I'm kind of entering the productive mode, in a way, the creative mode, and connecting myself to my resources, to my creative juices. So I think structure, especially when it's not very complicated, but quite simple, it can be very supportive to the creative process.
Two things. I had two thoughts listening to you now.
Mhm.
The first thing about the time and giving time deadlines. Uh, I think it's Parkinson's law that you will have an effect in the period of time you will give yourself. So if you give
Mm.
yourself one day to invent name, you will invent some name, and if you give yourself a week for inventing name, you will also invent the name, but it will be like 6 days longer. Yeah.
So interesting. Yeah. Great.
So because the process of creating likes to like expand itself in the period of time we give it. So I always bear it in mind. So yeah, so maybe it's better to limit myself in time and to do it more quickly. And it helps the process. The other thing about the limitations is that it's not only the time limits. It's sometimes clients, especially big brands, they are putting a lot of limitations in the brief, in the creative brief, and you may think it's people think that it limits our creativity, but for me personally, I like to. It, I think it makes my job easier because the limitation makes me more creative. Like I have to focus on the solution, how to like to fit all the limitations, and it's challenging in a way, but I think it helps help the final result.
Wonderful. Okay, Karolina. So let's slowly wrap up. I would like to ask you, is it true that you work in three languages?
Yeah, in some way, yeah. So I mostly I work in Polish,
Mhm,
and sometimes I create names in English.
mhm,
But I also have a husband that is from Brazil, so my second language is not, not English now, which can be heard in this conversation, because normally we use Portuguese
mhm,
in our home. So yeah, so I am able also to work in Portuguese, although I didn't have many opportunities
mhm,
to work in Portuguese, but I like to write. Well, the thing with Portuguese is that I love Brazilian music, and
Ah,
I think that the lyrics of their music, the language itself, Portuguese, is so beautiful, and it has some kind of every word has some kind of emotional weight in it.
mhm,
So, for example, I sometimes, very rarely, but still sometimes I write poetry, and I find myself writing more easily in Portuguese
wow.
because I'm listening to, maybe not now, but like 1 year ago, 2 years ago, I listened to so frequently to Brazilian music that it's in my head. It was like more. It was easier to express my feelings in Portuguese than
Yes, makes
Polish.
sense. Wow. So if people who are listening either are Polish or they speak English or Portuguese, if they would like to maybe contact you to find out more about what you do, perhaps receive maybe your free ebook that you are working on, or ask some questions, is it possible for them to do it?
Yeah, sure.
So
You
what's the
can
best
leave
one?
the contact for me or my email, for example, because the page is my website is uh, it's in the process of creating itself now. Because the one that is already on, I made with a baby on my lap, so it's not very good. And now my friend is working on it to look better, and it's all in Polish. So I think it's the better solution is to leave the email for me. And if somebody would like to, I don't know, talk with me about possible working together, it's more than welcome to use my email and to write me a message.
Great. So I will, in the comments, I will share your email and also your website, because maybe some people who are listening speak Polish, so they can also check out your website, sign up to your
In
new.
a month, please. In a month, when it will be
Okay,
like better.
in a month. Yes, the website. Okay, yes, perfect. Mm-hmm. And how did I sign up for your newsletter? Was it?
Oh, you have to go through the website. Yeah.
Okay. So in 1 month, I will share also the website, but for now,
Okay.
the email. Okay. Is
No,
there?
you can show. I was just kidding. You can
Okay.
show. I'm really proud of it, in fact, because I made it by myself in very hard conditions. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
good enough. I like the concept of being good enough.
Mhm. Yes,
Good
so
enough.
helpful, so needed. The concept of good enough, not needing to be perfect. Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't work when I work with clients, because I want it to be best possible, the things that I give them.
Mhm.
But to promote myself, good enough in these conditions that I have a baby that it's 16 months old and I work only at night, good enough website, good enough Instagram account, good enough newsletter is good enough.
Yes, yes. Okay. Is there anything else, Karolina, that you would like to add, either about your work or about your creative process before we finish?
Um, it's a hard question. I don't know. The only thing I would like to add, I think it's to, if you decide to create something by yourself, uh, try to make it fun.
Mm, yes.
Because you have to feel good while creating.
Mm.
So put on good music, pour yourself a drink, dance a bit, and then create and have fun. Because if you don't have fun during the process, maybe it's better to pay someone to suffer instead of you.
It's such a wonderful note to end on. Thank you so much, Karolina. It was really
Thank you for the invitation.
inspiring and my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.